Hi guys, welcome to the Lewins Creative. So in these tutorials, I'm going to show you everything about how to sew a corset. If you know how to cut a corset without knowing how to sew it, there is a problem, a big one. This tutorials is a continuation of the previous one, how to draft and cut a corset. So I'm gonna be dropping the link in the comment section and also in the description box below. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing. Share this video to friends and colleagues whom you think might need it. Leave me your comment at the comment section and also don't forget to like my video. Enjoy the rest of the tutorials. I used the pattern paper I drafted to cut out the main fabric, and as you can see, I added half-inch allowance on all the borders of the pattern paper except for the center front. I also applied the interface on the lining and on the fabric before I place the pattern paper on it to cut it out. This way it's easier so that I don't have to stay each of the patterns separately. Okay, these notches I made, I actually take them seriously, okay, because if you don't take notches seriously before removing the pattern paper, is going to be a trouble. Now I have removed the pattern paper on top the fabric, okay, and I'm going to now sew it in this manner. Okay, I'll be showing you how to sew it. So make sure that you notch very importantly, because if you don't notch, I'm telling you guys, if you don't notch before removing the pattern paper, I'm telling you guys, there is trouble. Okay, so I make sure that every notches has its own placement. So can you see what I'm doing? I match every notches with its side. So I make sure that it's okay like that. And I'm going to do the same to the other side as well. For the cup part of the corset, I use the pattern to cut out the wording I'm going to use. And I cut out wording for each of those cups, both for the lining and also for the main fabric. So I'm going to place each one of the wording on each one of the cup, both for the lining and for the main fabric. And I'm going to sew it together as one piece. Okay, so I did not forget to notch my wording, okay, along with my fabric on the cup side. Okay, so before I sew this onto this together, I'm going to check out the notches so that I will know whether this cup belongs to this side of the cup, belong to the other side. So it's only the notch that proves it. So that is why I am very particular about you notching your fabric, and you sew it in this manner just like you see. So after joining the two cups together, this is how it looks, okay, both for the main fabric and also for the lining as well. I did everything. For the lining, I made sure I top stitch the seam allowances. That way it is easier for me. But for the fabric, I will have to open and press down the seam allowances. Not just for the cup, but also the bodies, as you can see. For the bodies of the main fabric, I'm going to open up the seam and press it down with an iron for a good finishing. Next, I'll be doing a bony hole. That's a hole where the bony will have to pass through. So this is the fabric I'm going to use. I'm going to fold this fabric into 4 in order to get a width of 1.5 inch for one strand. I'm also going to apply interfacing on this strand in order to make it rigid. So I'm going to be using each of those strands on the body, just the way you see me doing it, on the center front and also the other side where the seams are. So I have applied it just exactly as I showed you. Okay, so now I'm going to be bending it over to the other side and then stitch on it at the extreme side. So you can see how it looks now. Now before you pass the bony through the bony hole or tunnel, you have to first of all stitch the cup area, okay? So that the stitch gives the bony a limit of where to pass through. Because if you don't do it like this, you may end up choking yourself with the bony. The bony will make you so uncomfortable, And also it's going to affect your sewing because the boning will create obstruction when you want to fix the cup onto the borders. This is a strap I made. I'm going to use it for looping for the back lacing, okay, where the rope is going to pass through to tighten the back. So I'm going to be giving the back a spacing of 1 inch spacing, except for the upper part which I gave the half inch, but the other rest of it will have a 1 inch spacing. So I am going to retrace the 1 inch spacing from one back pattern to the other one to ensure that they all is the same thing. Each loop length is 1.5 inch, and this is how I'm going to be applying it on the back. As you can see, so next I'm going to press down the seam allowance on the cup for the main fabric. So remember that for the lining I did a top stitch, but for the cup I wanted a proper finishing for it, so that is why I'm doing it like this. That is why I didn't stitch it up. I prefer to press it down with iron. Okay, so next I'm going to be fixing the cup to the body. Okay, this is how I'm going to go about it. I'm going to get the midpoint of the cup hole. So I'm going to notch it and then mark it. So from that midpoint, I will also get the midpoint of the cup itself and then place midpoint to midpoint, that center, and then pin it like this. Okay, and then I will start the seam. That's I will start sewing from the center. And while I'm sewing and arranging it, okay, so when I'm done fixing for one side, I'll also repeat the same process for the other side and stitch and sew it in that manner. I'll also repeat the same process to fix the second cup and also the lining as well. So this is how it looks, and the lining as well. That's how it looks. Next, I'm going to be doing a strap, and I'm going to be using the Ankara fabric. I'm going to fold the strap into two like this. Already I have interfaced the Ankara so that the strap will be rigid. So I'm marking a width of 2 inch from the other end, okay? And I will now trim off the part I don't need. I am making two straps for both arms. So I am dividing this into two. Each of the strap has a width of 2 inch. Now I'll be folding each of the strap into two like this, making it 1 inch. Then I will now sew it by 1/4 inch. This is in order to achieve the 0.75 strap I told you about. After stitching it, I will have to turn it in, okay, and then give it a good pressing. Now I'm going to be measuring out the length of the strap that I will need for this work. Remember that when I was drafting, the front strap was 6.25 and the back strap was 8.25. Adding these two numbers gives me 15. Then I will now add the half inch on both ends for the sewing allowance. So next I'm going to be fixing the strap on the seam area, that's the midpoint of the cup, like that. And this is it. I'm now going to bring the back side to fix the strap on the back side as well. So guys, can you see that I'm still checking the notches, okay? Because it's possible that you can turn the down part to be the up part, and so that is the importance of notching your patterns. So now I'm going to be fixing the strap and then stitching it up like that, and I will do the same for the other part as well. Once that is set, I'm now going to be joining the front to the back. Remember that I gave it half an inch sewing allowance when I used the pattern to cut the fabric, if you can remember. So I'm using the same half inch to sew it side by side. And I'm also doing the same thing for the lining. So I'm checking the notches and I'm doing the same thing for the lining as well. So once I have done that, I'm now going to press down the seam allowance on both sides for the main fabric, for the main fabric and also for the lining as well. So once that is done, I'm now going to bring the lining over the main fabric and begin to match them up. The cup center seam to the cup center seam of the fabric, that of the cup center seam of the lining to the cup center seam of the fabric, the center front of the fabric to the center front of the lining, and also the same to the other part, the side seam to the side seam, and so on. Okay. So once I am done matching them up, I'm now going to start my seam from the center front. I'm going to run it down to the back. I will also repeat the same process for the other side, and this is how it now is. So next I'm going to be applying notches all around that part that I stitched. I'm going to be applying notches. After applying the notches, I will then turn it over like this, and I will now top stitch on the lining. Okay, and now I have top stitched on this lining. So after that, I'm going to turn it over like this and then stitch up the loop. Okay, I'm going to consider the loop seam before stitching it, so that is why I'm going to stitch it up from the back. That's the other side of the fabric, so that I will have to see the seam, so that I don't sew in so much of loop into this, so that I have to use that seam to sew it. So now I have done that, and then this is how it looks. So it didn't shorten my loop at all because I used the seam guide to do that. So after the whole thing, I'm now going to press it properly, like give it a good pressing. And here we are. So guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, share this video to colleagues and friends who needs it. Okay, leave your comment at the comment section and also like my video. See you in my next tutorials. Bye.